Are there bears in the woods? Well, of course there are bears in the woods, but what about in greater Kansas City? I'm Roy Harriman with Kansas City Hiker, and joining us to answer that question is Nate Bowersock of the Missouri Department of Conservation. Nate is a bear biologist with the department. And Nate, before we get into the answer to this important question, can you share what a bear biologist in Missouri does? Kind of like, what is your day-to-day like?
Yeah, so as the state's bear biologist, I'm responsible for monitoring and managing the bear population here in the state. So that's everywhere from we ask folks to report bears to us if they see them on our MDC website, and so monitor our sighting feed, and if we have bears that are potentially getting into, say, garbage or bird feeders or whatnot. We'll have local damage biologists or conservation agents go out and try to help folks with those issues. We also have a series of GPS collars that we put out. We try to trap bears in the spring, put collars on them so we can track their movements. And then actually in the wintertime, especially the collared females, will actually locate their dens and try to go into those dens to count how many cubs they have so we can estimate how many cubs bears have on a regular basis, and then that helps us estimate the population on a regular basis. And then on top of that, we do a lot of education and outreach. That's whether it's interviews like this, but also we just put on programs to the public where we talk about our bear population here in Missouri. It's a recolonizing population that once we had bears statewide, and then through lack of management and deforestation, we lost our bear population. But over time, with putting regulations in place, we've watched the bear population come back. And so now we're seeing more and more bears in the state. And so it's my responsibility just to keep track of those animals and see how we can make sure that humans and bears can live together.
Well, thanks for that explanation. Most of us take the work, I think, that the department does for granted because we don't see it on a day-to-day basis, but then something like this brings it to our attention. So let's go ahead and jump into the question. Is it true that a bear or bears were actually sighted in Cass County, Missouri? What do we know?
Yeah, so we've actually had a couple confirmed sightings of bears in Cass County this summer alone. We had one, now time is blown, but a couple months back. And then more recently, there's been some more trail cam pictures that have come to light on social media. And then we've actually had people call in and say they've seen these animals out and about. So no, there has been some bear activity in Cass County, and it's fairly exciting for us in the department because it's just showing that our bear populations continue to grow and expand throughout the state, and that means they are showing up, even in the outskirts of Kansas City. The habitat there is more fragmented, the more fragmented forest area, but it still shows that bears are still taking advantage of the resources that are in that area.
Well, I have heard for years about bears and humans coming into, maybe conflict is too strong of a word, but contact in the St. Louis area where you have the forest goes all the way up to the exurbs and to some degree the suburbs from the Ozarks. So bears getting into garbage cans and things like that, that didn't really seem surprising. And as you mentioned, like a sign of a healthy population. But how do bears make it across the prairie from the Ozarks, and what are they doing?
Yeah, so our core bear population is down in the southern half of the state, and especially down there on the Arkansas line, and then into the Ozarks. And then we really use this as the feature. But if you look at the I-44 corridor, that major highway that just kind of cuts across the middle of the state, we see a lot of bears south of that corridor, and then that road it slows bear movement northward. But bears have definitely followed that corridor up towards St. Louis because there is quite a bit of forested area there that they follow. But, we've seen bears cross the I-44, and we've seen more activity, say around the Lebanon and Fort Leonard Wood area, and starting to show up more around Lake of the Ozark area, which we know has quite a bit of forested area. And so then as you start creeping, more westward and towards Kansas City, these bears, I'm guessing, are likely using those forested areas from say Lake of the Ozarks area, and slowly creeping their way westward. And because there still is plenty of forested area, and bears have very diverse diets. They're omnivores, so they can eat both plants and animals. And so, wherever there's potential food, bears will likely try to take advantage of those foods. And when you start connecting the dots, it's not outlandish, as we're seeing, to see bears showing up, even, on the edge of the prairie habitats we have in western Missouri.
So they wouldn't be deterred by acres and acres, thousands of acres of prairie or soybeans or things like that would stand between them and the next patch of forest. Because as you say, there are significant patches of forest around Kansas City, not like St. Louis, but
yeah, they prefer to have the forested areas. That's, black bears evolved to live in forested areas. That's where they find cover from the sun. That's where they find food. And then if they're in danger, then their natural reaction is to run and climb trees. They usually they do avoid those bigger open areas, but again, if there's food out in those open areas, they will take advantage. And if there's pockets of thick trees, they can easily use that as a travel corridor through those cornfields or soybean fields to move from one place to the next. And so, yeah, it's a lot more patchy as we move westward in the state and northward, but those areas still exist, and bears are very good at sticking to those areas if they can.
Nate, on the department's website, on its bear report, it indicates that black bear have been observed in basically all of the suburban counties of greater Kansas City. Now, I wasn't sure if it's reported on that page. Does that mean that there is in fact a bear there, or somebody could have seen somebody getting costumed up for their smoky activity or something like that?
Yeah, so our bear report site, that's where we report. We try to post all the bear sightings that we receive. We try to confirm as many of those as we can. So confirming meaning having photographic or video evidence of some sort, or having someone say an MDC employee that actually was physically there. But not all those are necessarily confirmed. But over the years, I would say that we've had some sort of confirmed evidence over the years of bears in most of those counties that surround the Kansas City area. A lot of the sightings I think we had in the last couple of years around that region, are more word of mouth, but we definitely do have photos in some of those cases.
Now, I'm just curious, isn't the Missouri River a deterrent for bears being north of the river? Or I'm a little clueless on that one.
Yeah, bears are actually really good swimmers, and especially when things are as hot as this summer has been, we definitely see bears take advantage of large bodies of water. The Missouri River is a large river that's and arguably faster moving, and so it definitely would inhibit bears wanting to spend much time in the river. But we do see the bears crossing the river for sure. I don't know if we have any direct data to show, whether they're swimming across or, especially at night, there's plenty of bridges that cross the Missouri River, and with lower traffic, bears wouldn't necessarily be completely deterred to use the bridge. And we have seen in other locations in the state, bears using bridges to cross over water.
Fascinating. Well, they are definitely much more improvising and adapting than I would have imagined. I think the main issue here for people who live in greater Kansas City, who probably won't, but it's always possible that they could encounter a bear, is can you give us some guidance about how should we respond if, say, I believe these bears were sighted in the vicinity of the Katy Trail, if I'm understanding that correctly. But it doesn't matter where we encounter them. If we encounter a black bear or more than one, how should we respond?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something that we're trying to really get the word out for all Missourians to know, especially those of us that live in the more central northern parts of the state that don't see bears as often. The big thing is to stay calm. Yes, this is a larger animal. You're probably not used to seeing something this large in the wild, but at the end of the day, deer are actually more dangerous than bears are. In many cases, we see more people injured by deer each year than bears. But the big thing is to give them space, not to go crazy. Definitely don't run. Never run from bears. The big thing is you want to make sure that bear is aware that you're there. So talking to it calmly, as silly as that might sound, talking to it calmly helps maybe keep you calm, and then helps the bear know that you are there. And then the other thing is then trying to put as much space between you and that bear as possible. So if you're coming out, say, your back door into your backyard and there's a bear there, just go back in your house. Or if you're getting out of your car, trying to go into the house, maybe go back into your car, and use that, the vehicle or house as protection until the bear moves on. Now, if the bear is still hanging around, making lots of noise, really loud noises is really good. Bears don't like loud noises. So, whether you're clapping your hands or get pots and pans and banging at them, or if you're in your car honking your horn, these can be good ways to get a bear to move on from hanging out near your place. And then the big thing is, if you are seeing a bear in your neighborhood, it's good to let your neighbors know. And here at MDC, we would love to know too, because we can actually send some of our staff out to help, look into why was this bear there. In many cases, bears are just looking for food. So if you have unsecured food sources, so whether your bird feeder or your trash is just sitting out on the curb, that might be attracting the bear. And so finding ways to either remove those bird feeders or move that trash into more secure places like your garage will really help reduce the chance of bears hanging out in any one place at one time, and they'll likely just move on to go back to the woods.
In Colorado, particularly in the mountainous areas, people do something different with their trash cans, right? When they leave, I know they only leave them for the minimal amount of time for if a carrier is going to pick them up, or are there special bins that lock up trash so that's not quite as attractive?
Yeah, so there are bear-resistant trash cans that are made that have special latches that make it hard for a bear to open up, and if they tip the can over, it's not going to open on a drop. But because we don't have as many bears here, those cans can be expensive, and so the quick and easy thing is just to bring it into your house or into your garage. But that people don't always have that ability, or some folks, especially down in the Ozarks, they keep their trash bans have to be outside for whatever reason. And so another thing you could do is build a structure around your garbage can that you can lock until you need to pull it out to put it on the curb for the trash collectors to come. And it's also good practice that if there is a bear in the area, to keep that trash in a secure location until right up to the moment that the trash collectors come, to help reduce the amount of time that food source could be out for bears to get into.
So the bears that have been spotted in Cass County, are they likely, is this their new address, or are they just maybe wandering and just looking for, new possibilities?
It's hard to say. This time of the year, bears are still moving around looking for food, but it's end of August, and bears are going to be starting to enter what we call hyperphagia. So it's the state that bears go from eating, maybe 8 to 10 hours a day to eating up to 20 hours a day. And they could start consuming foods up to, 15 to 20,000 calories a day, because they're trying to put weight on to prepare for hibernation. And so when they do that, bears really start to focus on different food sources. They might go back to the places that they originally came from. We are seeing bears disperse out of their core range down south. And then that's, especially in spring and summer, we're seeing more activity, say around Kansas City or St. Louis. But we tend to see those bears turn around and then go back south to more forested areas where they're more used to things. Now, it's hard to say with the bears that have shown up in the Kansas City area or in Cass County, to be specific, if they're going to stay there or not. It all depends on what food's available and the areas that they disperse from. If they came from an area that has a lot of bears, they may not want to go all the way back there because there's more competition for food, versus up here, there's not as much competition for food, but then they do have to deal with people, which most bears do not want to do. So my guess is that they likely will turn and head somewhat south, but it's hard to say. Bears do their thing sometimes.
A great thing I always enjoy seeing is people on trails with their dogs. Is that at all a complicating factor? For example, if you come across a bear, I've read before that bears and dogs are perhaps like natural enemies, or anything that we need to keep in mind there.
Yeah, no, another great question, a thing to bring up. And if there's bear activity in the area and you like walking your dogs, we would strongly encourage you to keep your dog on leash at all times, because bears and dogs do not get along. Also, when you do have your dog on a leash, we advise that to be a solid short leash, not one of those retractable ones, because having a dog on a long lead puts a lot more distance between you and your dog. And so if a bear shows up, it's more likely to go after your dog versus if it's close by to you, one. And then two, that when we do see human bear conflicts or injuries, we see a lot of cases where people are getting injured is because their dog's on a long leash and a bear attacks their dog and they try to intervene with the attack, and inevitably the bear attacks the person. So to deter something like that from happening, we really encourage you to walk your dog on leash and on a short leash that you have very good control over, because that'll help keep a distance between you and the bear and your dog.
Good point. No, your natural inclination would be to protect your pet, right? And then it's a three-way fight, right? So
Yeah.
now, if we say we're in a fairly populated area, I'm not talking about a grain field, in southern Cass County, but what we would consider a suburban or exurban area, and we do have either footage of a bear or we see a bear. You mentioned the department would like to know, so let the department know. Is this something where someone should call like their local animal control? I doubt animal control's equipped to deal with bears.
Yeah, MDC wants to know. So we have a bear sightings form that anyone can fill out on the MDC website. So mdc.mo.gov, and there's a whole tab for animal sightings, and one of those is for bears. You can also call. We have regional offices all over the place, and so actually Kansas City has a regional office in just outside the proper Kansas City area. And then there's also conservation agents and damage biologists that also work in the regions. And so there's a whole web of people that you can call. But the big thing is if you see a bear, especially in a suburban area, MDC wants to know, because we can send the proper personnel out to help work that bear. A lot of other agencies or groups out there just don't have the resources available to work with bears, and we do have those tools so that we can make sure that the outcome is that everyone walks away as safely as possible, both animal and human.
And I assume it goes without saying, don't try to feed the bears or leave food out for bears. I've never heard anyone say that in populated areas you should try to feed wild animals of any sort.
Yeah, the big thing ever, is never approach a bear. You see a bear, and the big thing again is put as much distance between you and that animal. Never feed a bear. The big thing that keeps getting told in most places is a fed bear is a dead bear. Once bears become accustomed to a food source, especially a high energy food source, so human foods are usually high in fat and sugar, which is bears are looking for. Once they become accustomed to that, it's hard to ever get them to go back to natural foods. And so inevitably we have to remove those animals. So to reduce the chance of a bear getting human foods and inevitably being removed because of that, the best thing is to secure all food items as possible. Never feed bears. I know some folks feed their pets outside or their livestock outside. If you are doing that, you need to make sure you bring your food bowls inside. And if you're feeding livestock outside, potentially have electric fencing around that area, because that electric fencing is a very effective tool to keep a bear out of an area. And so if you have, say, chickens, for example, put electric fence up, you can put all the food out you want inside that chicken coop. And as long as the electric current's going through, that's going to prevent a bear from getting the chickens low on the feed that you're giving them.
In this day and age, and of course, I know this isn't a new thing, but the kind of the bear tourism, like, hey, let's see how, like, mostly, you associate it with Yellowstone. Let's see how close we can possibly get to a wild animal and then get a selfie in front of it. So somebody's inclination may be, oh, wow, I got to get my phone out. I got to take a picture of this bear. Is that okay? Or should we just calmly just kind of start over?
That's yeah, especially this day and age of social media and everything. And like we keep, we always tell folks, for us to confirm any sort of sighting, whether it's a bear or mountain lion, we want photos. But that should be the last thing on your mind. The biggest thing is making sure you get yourself to a safe distance or a safe location. But say, hey, it's in your backyard, and the bear's just hanging out there. Yeah, it's not crazy to take a picture, but don't approach a bear to take a picture. And definitely, until you're a good distance away from a bear, if you're out hiking, say at least 100 yards or so, I would not pull the camera out to take pictures. You need to make sure that you and the bear are separated by a good distance and are being safe before even thinking about taking pictures of an animal.
Nate Bowersock, a bear biologist with the Missouri Department of Conservation. Appreciate your insights here as we have a relatively new discussion about bear population, perhaps, or a few wanderers in greater Kansas City. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, again, it's exciting that we do have bears in the state and the population's growing and expanding, and we do want to know about those sightings. So again, just want to reiterate that if people go to mdc.mo.gov, they can report those bear sightings, but they can also find just lots of general information about bears on our website. And that's everything from, just basic bear biology, but also to how to be bear aware, or we're also a bear wise state. So a state that we provide information to allow people and bears to live responsibly with each other. And so you can find information about how to secure food and whatnot around your house with the information on our website, or the Bearwise website, which is bearwise.org. Both places provide a lot of really great information about bears and how to live with bears. And and give us a call if you ever, if there's ever questions or concerned about bears. We always have folks available to talk about bears, and we welcome your phone calls.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights today, and thanks everybody for watching. And you can learn more about recreational opportunities outdoors in Greater Kansas City at kansascityhiker.com.